What's up? This is Dr. Taylor Krick at the Washington Wellness Center, and today I just wanted to record a video about this journal that I've had for years and I've read many times, but it's just really great. So I'm going to skim through it. It's about food sensitivities and autoimmunity, and instead of make a slide deck about it, I just wanted to go through the entire journal with you and show it to you. And it's something that we're happy to share with anybody if they ask. And it's an entire episode, an entire issue of this journal dedicated towards food immune reactions and autoimmunity. So I'm just going to go into it and scroll through it and just explain it as I go. So it's in the journal Alternative Therapies, and you see the title page there, Food Immune Reaction and Autoimmunity. So this entire journal is dedicated towards this topic, this issue of the journal. And what they say in here is, I'm just going to go through, blah, 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 add. But here's an editorial. So from the editor, Andrew Campbell, and he says, he said a few years ago or whatever, I contacted 16 labs in the country that do food sensitivity testing. I contacted them at least 3 times, and I asked them to provide some evidence for the reliability and reproducibility and validity of their testing. And he said 3 labs reached back to him, but he said Dr. Vojdani reached back to him with 7 papers. So this entire issue of this journal, so picture a journal like a magazine, right? And in Sports Illustrated, there's going to be 10 different articles by 10 different authors on 10 different topics. But Dr. Vojdani reached back with so many papers, he submitted so many papers, that this entire issue are different papers, peer-reviewed papers written by Dr. Vojdani. That's basically what this says. And he talks about a lot about just the basics of food sensitivities in here. He says approximately 1 ton of food goes through our gut every year, including more than 220 pounds of proteins, attesting to the fact of the effectiveness of the immune system in protecting us from adverse reactions. So pretty crazy, some stats there. There's a ton of crazy stuff in here, so I don't want to get too distracted by seeing a thing here or there because there's so much. But he says that Dr. Vojdani provided 7 papers that are all in this special issue. So I'm just going to look at some of the titles of them with you, and you're going to get the point of it. But like I said, we can share this with you if you want to read through it. If you read this start to finish, you're going to know not all there is to know, but you're going to know quite a bit about food sensitivity testing. The first one is, a little bit of a bummer, and why we do use Dr. Vojdani's lab, Cyrex Laboratories. And it says, the evolution of food immune reactivity testing, why IgG or IgA antibodies for food may not be reproducible from one lab to another. So that's a big problem, is that there's a lot of these low dollar food sensitivity tests, and they haven't proven to be reproducible. You can take the same person's blood and split it into 3 and send it to 3 different labs, and they're not all going to match up. Or you can do the same lab 2 times in a row, and the results aren't reproducible, which is a big deal in the world of lab testing. Is for it to be valid, the results need to be reproducible, of course. So this one's talking about some of the criticisms with other lab testing, even for IgG and IgA antibodies, but how they're not that reliable. And you can see there's a lot of highlighted pieces here. If there's anything that sticks out, I'm not going to get too distracted. So that's one article that's in this journal. A next one is... one's long. But another one by Dr. Vojdani, boy, that one is really, really long. So that's good. If you read through that, you're going to understand some of the downfalls of some of the lab tests that are out there, and some of the benefits of Cyrex and why they do things the way they do them, especially at Cyrex. The next article is called Oral Tolerance and its Relationship to Food Immunoreactivity. So once again, this is everything food sensitivity testing. So it starts with, here's what's out there. here's what's out there in the world of food sensitivity testing, and here are some of the downfalls and some of the reproducibility problems and some of the validity problems. Then it goes into the basics of oral tolerance and its relationship to food sensitivity. So oral tolerance is your immune system being able to differentiate good guys from bad guys. And we have an entire PowerPoint on oral tolerance and how to support oral tolerance, but that is essentially the breakdown of when your body starts attacking food, then it's going to next maybe attack thyroid or attack brain or attack skin or attack gut or begin to attack tissue. So when you lose tolerance, your body loses the ability to distinguish self from non-self, and it begins attacking self-tissue. That's what autoimmune disease is. So he's going into the whole concept of tolerance. I'm really into it, but I'm not going to describe it to you guys. Here's some induction or disturbance of oral tolerance, and how do you get tolerance? How does tolerance develop? Over the course of birth to gestation to birth to infancy to childhood to adult levels of tolerance and of immune cells, and all you ever wanted to know about oral tolerance to food, the importance of reestablishing oral tolerance. And you see this graphic image here that just shows oral tolerance is impacted by age. It's impacted by were you breastfed, even if you're 40, were you breastfed 39 years ago, your nutrition, your vitamin D status. There are other dietary factors, the antigens in the foods themselves, other things like LPS, inflammatory particles of bacterial cell membranes, other things in your microbiome, in your gut. Do you have leaky gut? Do you have an allergy? Are there drugs or medications? And do you have certain genes that are going to impact your tolerance? So that one's really, really good. The next ones go into, there's an ad, molecular mimicry as a mechanism for food immune reactivities and autoimmunity. So if you don't know what molecular mimicry is, it's like if a molecule looks a lot like another molecule, your immune system can easily confuse one molecule for another. So like gluten is famously similar to thyroid tissue. So molecular mimicry, your immune system can begin attacking gluten, and then all of a sudden it kind of confuses gluten for thyroid tissue, and it begins attacking thyroid tissue. Then you have an autoimmune disease. So there's a whole article on molecular mimicry. Very, very, very important topic. Now, if you're a practitioner, this makes sense, and you want to know these things, you need to know these things. If you're a layperson, you might not want to know them, you might not need to know them, but if you're into science and the reading, it's everything you ever wanted to know about food immune reactivities and how they lead to autoimmune disease. Here are some graphics that we have in some of our other PowerPoints, but wheat and some of the autoimmune diseases that wheat has been associated with. Here are some of the autoimmune diseases that milk has been associated with. So the cross reactivities there. This is kind of how this looks like, how beta casein, which is milk protein, can look a lot like these beta cell components of the islet cells of your pancreas. So you have a milk sensitivity, then all of a sudden your body confuses that for pancreas cells. Molecular mimicry there. Here's some other molecular mimickers with multiple sclerosis, neuromyelitis optica, and other neuroimmune disorders. So it goes through those. And then there is an article about lectins, agglutinins, and their roles in autoimmune reactivity. So this has become a much more popular topic in the last few years. Dr. Stephen Gundry has really popularized the lectin conversation. But lectins are a really big deal, and especially in something like rheumatoid arthritis. But lectins can cause a lot of gut problems, and they can cause, basically get food antigens across the gut membrane into the bloodstream and into the immune system, into the lymph nodes, in the absence of leaky gut. So they can kind of transport things across the border, even when the border is not broken, if that makes sense. So a really, really important conversation with lectins and agglutinins, wheat germ agglutinin, implications of lectins in autoimmune disease, interactions of lectins with immune function and induction of autoimmune disease, how a lectin sensitivity leads to inflammatory response and leads to autoimmune disease. Some graphics showing how those things happen. Lectin-induced disorders associated with leaky gut, with diabetes, with rheumatic conditions like RA, like I mentioned. There's RA, nephritis, infertility, allergies, celiac disease, gut dysbiosis, all associated with lectins. And once again, some great graphics there on how that works for your joints. And then immune reactivity to food coloring. I actually just went over a food sensitivity panel with somebody today who was reactive to food coloring. It's pretty common, but often not tested in a lot of your typical laboratory food sensitivity tests. Food chemicals or food dyes associated with all these things: hyperactivity, hypersensitivity, mitochondrial dysfunction, failure, and oral tolerance. They can interfere with digestive enzymes. They can enhance leaky gut. They can cause allergies, etc. There with the food colorings. And Then the last one is on gums, immune reactivity against gums that are used in a lot of our foods to bind things together. And food science is really like, I don't know, carpentry for food of how can we get these things to look the best and stay together the best, not necessarily what is the most wholesome, nutritious meal for our bodies, but how can we get them to look good? How can we get more people to buy them? How can we get them to last longer? These are the things that food scientists talk about. So anyway, I think that's the last one. Oh, peanuts, glutenins, and oleosins. Peanuts is one of the more common actual food allergies, and we're not going to talk about that one very much. There's also one at the end. So anyway, if you are interested in this, here's environmental factors in autoimmune disease. There's Dr. Vojdani. And yeah, so this is an entire journal. It's 92 pages. If you're interested in this, reach out to us. We can share it with you. But it's going to teach you everything that you ever wanted to know about food sensitivities. And I hope that even just by skimming through it, that we're doing more videos like this, because I read so many cool research articles and cool papers that rather than reinvent the wheel, it's just, show you what I'm reading. And if you want access to it, we can send that to you. This is a really, really cool paper, really cool entire journal. I also think that it's really cool that Dr. Vojdani gave them so many articles that they just dedicated the entire issue to him. So it's really his articles. And he's one of the world's leading immunologists, one of the most published researchers on this topic, has really pioneered IgG food testing, which is why we use Cyrex Labs. And you can watch some of our other webinars on oral tolerance, on autoimmune disease testing, Cyrex testing, and on Cyrex food sensitivity testing. But I hope that this gives you some stuff to chew on when it comes to food sensitivities.